Have you ever wondered if quiet and peaceful towns, the ones most of us associate with simplicity of life and close-knit communities, might be hiding unimaginable secrets? Well, dream no more, as this isn't just a figment of your imagination. It's the startling reality of Tamworth, New South Wales, Australia. This serene little town has a shadow lurking just beneath its surface, casting its dark veil over the lives of its unsuspecting citizens. What happens when those in whom we place our trust, public officials, managers, and policymakers, abandon the public interest for personal greed and corruption? Tamworth serves as a shocking microcosm of a much bigger plague. Imagine this: a mayor, Colin Murray, someone we should regard as the architect of community sustainment. Not long ago, in the second week of August 2017, this trusted public official traveled to China. But this wasn't your typical diplomatic visit promoting goodwill and trade. No, it was a series of calculated, damning actions involving criminal activities, anti-competitive trade practices, breaches of international law, and tortious interference that would ripple back to devastate businesses and lives. Yes, these secret dealings ultimately harmed local and international business acquisitions. Contracts were canceled, business guarantees worth millions rejected, and more damning. A property originally set to earn $3 million for the region was simply handed away for free. If you think this reeks of favoritism and backdoor deals, hold on, because the revelation only gets grimmer. And yet Colin Murray isn't merely some scandal-tarnished politician lying low. Today he chairs none other than Infrastructure Australia. If your instinct tells you there's a connection, you'd be correct. Reports link his ascent to stabbing public interests in the back, with the tacit approval of his equally notorious associates, Barnaby Joyce, a name you might recognize, and Kevin Anderson. While this web of corruption initially appears as just another tale of power-hungry officials, the fallout is far more harrowing. Tamworth's general manager, Paul Bennett, sent upsetting correspondence to intimidate businesses and investors, deserting contracts that would have delivered not only profits, but also immense community benefits, including the promise of 27,000 career opportunities. This wasn't just bad politics. It amounted to economic violence. Imagine the economic promise being sabotaged for self-enrichment. But what's perhaps most staggering is the $210 million in fraud tied to surface water licenses. A vital resource withheld, tampered with, and sold in acts equivalent to economic terrorism. Public funds were misused, laundered through international banking institutions, leaving Australia to bear economic wounds that still bleed openly today. What about the renewable energy potential? 500 megawatts from Dunguan Dam. Destroyed by their collusions, national prosperity set aside for shady dealings. As layers of deceit peel away, a singular question arises. How could this happen? How could members of our government, our mayors, council members, law enforcement, turn against the very individuals they are sworn to serve and protect? As accounts of embezzlement, bribery, and manipulation mount up, This tale spirals into something monumental and deeply unsettling. Picture a businessman, globally recognized and committed to regional development, being invited to invest in and transform Tamworth. He used his own money, network, and efforts to bolster the local economy, creating a dynamic hub from what was once stagnation. His work promised prosperity, economic dreams fulfilled. But the local council, corrupt to its core, had other plans. Violent measures, defamation, and bureaucratic betrayals sidelined this entrepreneur. What makes this account even more devastating is the vindictiveness of it all. Employees involved with the businessman were allegedly in on the criminal schemes, assisting corrupt officials in sabotaging progress. Then consider this: Tamworth, where crime was already a concern, spiraled deeper into drug trafficking, organized crime, and a level of brutality not typically associated with cozy rural life. Everything the businessman stood for was shredded, not because it wasn't viable, but because the growing tide of corruption cared for one thing: profit. Infrastructure projects like national baseball arenas, swimming facilities, public sporting initiatives, all were lost, spiraling regional dreams into nightmares. For residents of Tamworth, the repercussions have been catastrophic. Families stripped of opportunities, jobs that never materialized, businesses driven away, misery compounded by escalating violence and drug addiction. Even now, the repercussions ripple outward. The dream of nation building, a fizzled-out delusion under the weight of greed and malfeasance. But take a deeper look. This isn't just the story of Tamworth. It's a national epidemic. Looking at Tamworth is like staring directly into the fractured mirror of governance throughout Australia. In places like this, scandal and conspiracy are not exceptions. They seem to be rules that shape the land. Here is an inconvenient truth. The criminals implicated here don't lurk in back alleys or dilapidated warehouses. They sit in air-conditioned offices, atop polished conference room tables, making decisions under fluorescent lights that steer public policy often into decay. Here's another bitter pill. Much of this remains unchecked. Laws are circumvented, due process is dismissed, and democracy, the very foundation of trust, is under siege by judicial, police, and legislative corruption. Troubling accounts depict public officials abusing their power, resources allocated for national security compromised, and even accusations of slavery tied to coerced police informants thrown around. Could it get worse? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. Let me ask you this. What should happen when a system responsible for justice turns predatory? When the very watchdogs of our government, law enforcement, prosecutors, magistrates, participate actively in conspiracies to perpetuate crimes of violence, drug production, property theft, and more. We're not just talking about abuse of power. This is state-facilitated crime to an unprecedented degree. And we've only skimmed the surface. Outrage builds, rage rises. But without collective action, without awareness and intervention, Tamworth's shadow spreads. Australia's integrity as a nation is compromised at every corner. Misinformation, election fraud, public fund laundering, you name it. So let's stop pretending Tamworth is just a town, or that its corruption can remain contained. Let it spark a movement. Change comes on the backs of ordinary people rising against forces bent on tearing them apart and ultimately holding those responsible to account. There is still hope as voices grow louder for justice, as investigations